Have you ever noticed how easy it is to give to everyone else? But when it comes to receiving, whether that's rest, support, money, or even joy, something inside you freezes up. Maybe you undercharge for your work. Maybe you're the one everyone leans on. But you can't remember the last time you let someone truly care for you. Maybe buying yourself something beautiful feels almost sinful. If that resonates with you, sweet friend, you're not alone and you're not broken. What you might be carrying is what I call the I don't have barrier, a deep rooted belief that there's just never enough for you. Not enough time, not enough money, not enough rest, not enough provision. And beneath all of that, a quiet fear that maybe you don't have enough faith, enough wisdom, or even enough spiritual discernment to trust God's leading in your life. But here's the truth I want you to hear today. You were never meant to live in scarcity. You were created to flourish. Today, we're going to talk about how the I don't have barrier gets installed, what it's really trying to tell you, and how to step into the abundance, both spiritual and material, that God always intended for you. So settle in. I'm so glad you're here. Let's dive in. Welcome to Healing Religious Trauma, the podcast for Christian women ready to heal without losing their faith. If you're feeling the weight of spiritual pressure and distant from the God you used to trust, you're in the right place. I'm Deborah Schaefer, spiritual healing coach, founder of the Coming Home Journey, and someone who's walked the hard road of untangling toxic faith. If you're ready to make sense of your story, find peace with a safe, loving God, and hear stories that remind you you're not alone, grab your tea, toss the rule book, and let's go. Before we jump into today's episode, I want to invite you into something that's changing women's lives. If you're ready to break through all 12 hidden barriers of religious trauma, not just understand them, but actually transform at the deepest level, the Coming Home Journey was created for you. It's a 6-month guided experience where we unravel the trauma together, instill God's truth, and create a completely new story. You'll have live coaching, a supportive community, and everything you need to heal with your faith intact. You can learn more at thecominghomejourney.com. That's thecominghomejourney.com. And if you're not quite ready for that yet, but you want to start somewhere, go take the free quiz at religionstraumaquiz.com. You'll get a personalized report plus my complete essential starter kit, including my book, He Is Enough, the Truth Over Tradition mini course, live reading circles, and access to our beautiful community, all completely free. Your healing starts with one small step. Let's take it together. You know, in our last cohort of the Coming Home Journey, I watched something beautiful unfold with one of our sisters named Tekyia. She came to us already walking her own personal journey with God after leaving a really difficult marriage. She'd been doing the work, reading the books, praying, but she still felt this lingering fear and disconnection. And she couldn't figure out why. As we moved through the milestones together, something started to shift. She told us later that one of the most powerful moments happened during a live group call. She was coached through a breakthrough, and for the first time, she realized she'd been living her entire life from a place of scarcity, not just financially, but spiritually. She said, I was scared of letting go of everything I'd been taught about God, scared that if I got too free, I'd lose my faith or even my salvation. And beneath all that was this aching question. What if nothing ever changes? What if I never get the deep connection with God that my heart is yearning for? But here's what she discovered. Her relationship with God transformed. She told us it's no longer about doing all the right things so He won't leave me. It's about love. It's about trust. My obedience is no longer driven by fear, but by love. Love for a God who loved me even when I had nothing to give. And listen to this, she said. I no longer live by a checklist. Even if I fall asleep mid-prayer or I don't read 10 chapters in the Bible per day, I know He's still with me. I know I'm loved. That's the shift from scarcity to abundance, friend. From striving to receiving. From fear to trust. And that's exactly what we're talking about today. Let me start by saying something really important. If no one's ever told you this before, I need you to hear it now. You're not selfish for wanting rest. You're not greedy for desiring provision. And you're not spiritually immature for feeling depleted. What you might be carrying is the invisible barrier that was installed in you a long time ago. One that whispers, there's never enough for you. Today, we're going to gently unpack this I don't have barrier together. We're going to look at how it got installed, what it's really trying to protect you from, and how to step into the abundance God always intended for you, spiritually and materially. Let's start today with the first point, how scarcity got installed. Okay, so let's talk about how this belief even gets formed in the first place. For many of us who grow up in religious environments, especially if they were conservative or controlling, scarcity was often confused with holiness. You may have heard messages like, "Blessed are the poor," "Deny yourself," "Sacrifice is the highest form of faith." To be like Christ means to go without. And over time, these messages didn't just shape how you thought about money or possessions. They shaped how you thought about everything: rest, joy, beauty, even your own needs. You learned that wanting more meant you were selfish, that needing support meant you weren't faithful enough, that if you had ease in your life, maybe you were straying from God. And here's the really insidious part. This belief didn't just affect your material life. It infected your spiritual life too. You started to believe you didn't have enough faith to trust God. You didn't have enough wisdom to hear Him clearly. You didn't have enough discernment to make the right spiritual choices. So you became afraid of getting it wrong, afraid of being deceived, afraid of missing God's voice in the noise. And when you live from that place of spiritual scarcity, you end up serving everyone else from emptiness, not overflow. You're constantly seeking external validation for your decisions because you don't trust your own renewed discernment. You're always giving, always pouring out, always depleted, because somewhere along the way, you absorbed the lie that this is what faithfulness looks like. But listen to me, friend. None of that is divine truth. That's spiritual distortion. The real truth, God delights in your thriving, and there is more than enough for you. Scripture says in Luke 12:32, it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Did you catch that? It's His pleasure, not His reluctant obligation, not something you have to beg for or earn through sacrifice. His pleasure to give you the kingdom. That doesn't sound like a God who wants you living in perpetual lack, does it? All right, the second point I want to make today is what I don't have really means. So let's dig a little deeper. What is this I don't have barrier really telling you? At its core, this barrier is about unworthiness. It's the belief that you're not worthy of receiving good things from God, from others, or from life itself. And here's how it shows up in everyday life. In your finances, you undercharge for your work. You give away your time for free. You feel guilty when money actually does come in. You avoid asking for what you need because you don't want to be a burden. In your calendar, you're always available for everyone else, but you can't remember the last time you blocked off time just for rest or joy. And when you do try to take time for yourself, you feel guilty about it. In your relationships, you're the one everyone leans on, but you can't let yourself receive support. When someone offers to help you, your first instinct is to say, "Oh no, I'm fine, I've got it," even when you don't. In your spiritual life, you're terrified of spiritual deception, so you don't trust your own discernment. You constantly seek external validation from pastors, from books, from other people, because you're afraid you don't have enough wisdom or faith to hear God clearly on your own. And beneath all these patterns is one core belief: I don't deserve abundance. Less is somehow holier. More is unsafe. But friend, let me tell you something. This belief did not come from God. God isn't glorified by your depletion. He's not honored by your exhaustion. And he's clearly not impressed by your ability to go without. In John 10:10, Jesus says, "I have come that they may have life and have it to the full." Not barely scraping by, not just enough to survive, to the full. And that fullness includes both spiritual and material abundance. It includes rest and provision and joy and ease. It includes having your needs met so you can serve others from overflow, not emptiness. You weren't created to live behind glass, always looking at abundance but never touching it. You were born to overflow. Okay, and here's the third point for today. How to shift from scarcity to abundance. So, how do we do this? How do we actually make the shift? How do we move from scarcity to abundance? Not just in theory, but in our real, everyday lives. It starts with recognizing that material scarcity and spiritual scarcity are symptoms of the same root issue: not believing you're worthy of receiving good things from a loving Father. And here's the beautiful breakthrough that happens in milestone 9 in the coming home journey. You begin to understand that when the static of false narratives has been removed, when you've unraveled the trauma and instilled the truth, you can hear God's still small voice. You can trust your renewed discernment. Let me say that again because it's so important. Your discernment is trustworthy when it's aligned with God's character. You don't need to live in constant fear of being deceived. You don't need to seek external validation for every decision. You've done the inner work. The static is clearing, and God created you to know the difference between His voice and other influences. So here's what the shift looks like practically. First, you learn to live in present moment connection. That's where divine guidance actually operates, not in anxious future planning or past regret, but here, right now, in this moment with God. Second, you start serving from abundance instead of scarcity. You learn to ask people what they actually need instead of assuming. You honor their free will instead of trying to rescue or control. You offer support from overflow, not from depletion. Third, you practice receiving. This might be the hardest one, friend, but it's also the most transformative. You let someone help you. You say yes when support is offered. You buy yourself something beautiful without guilt. You block off time for rest and protect it fiercely. And here's the key. you begin to trust that God's provision is real, not just for others, but for you too. Philippians 4:19 says, "And my God will meet all your needs according to the riches of his glory in Christ Jesus." All your needs, not just your basic survival needs, all of them. And not from a place of scarcity, but from the riches of his glory. Friend, you are deeply loved by all of life, and it is right and good for you to have the best life has to offer. Your joy is sacred, your well-being is holy, and you are trustworthy with abundance. Okay, let's wrap this up. So here's what I want you to take with you this week. For your reflection, ask yourself this question: where in my life am I still living as if there's never enough for me? And what would change if I believed that abundance, spiritual and material, was my birthright, not something I have to earn? For your action, choose one small act of restoration this week. Maybe that's raising your prices if you're undercharging. Maybe it's buying yourself something beautiful without guilt. Maybe it's blocking off time for rest and actually protecting it. Or maybe it's simply thanking God for what you already have, and then boldly asking for what you need. You don't have to prove your worth by going without, friend. You don't have to hustle or beg or perform for permission to have what fills you. What if having more rest, more provision, more joy, actually made you more loving, not less? What if abundance was the soil where authentic service could finally grow? This week, I invite you to unlock the vault, to step out from behind the glass, to receive what's already yours, because you were never meant to live in scarcity. You were born to overflow. Hey friend, if today's episode stirred something in you, if you felt that tug in your spirit saying, I want this kind of freedom, I want to invite you to take the next step. The Coming Home Journey is where we do this deep work together. It's a 6-month guided experience where we break through all 12 hidden barriers, not just the I don't have one we talked about today. You'll have live coaching with me, a community of sisters who truly get it, and every tool you need to heal with your faith intact. Learn more at thecominghomejourney.com. And if you're not quite ready for that, start at religiostraumaquiz.com. You'll discover which hidden barriers you're carrying, and you'll get my complete essential starter kit, including my book, mini course, reading circles, and community access, all free. Your healing doesn't have to wait, friend. It starts today. Next week, we're diving into something that might hit even closer to home for many of you, the I'm too much barrier. Have you ever been told you're too sensitive, too emotional, too loud, too much? If you spent your life shrinking yourself to fit into spaces that were never meant to contain your fullness, next week's episode is going to feel like coming up for air. We're going to talk about why you were told you're too much, what that belief is costing you in your relationships, and how to step into spaces big enough to honor the divine fire that lives inside you. I can't wait to walk through this with you. Until then, remember, you're not too much, you're not broken, and you're definitely not alone. See you next week.